Welcome back to another edition of the Balas and Skene podcast. This is, week 7, I think. I'm Chris Balas, with me Doug Skene, Michigan's 5-time Big Ten champion, former NFL guy, all Big Ten guy, blah, 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 blah. We get it. He's pretty damn good at evaluating things. So, and especially line play. And Skene, that's where I want to start, obviously, on Saturday night's game. You know how much shit we get for picking against Michigan in these games, and I can't tell you how many times on the message board, oh, Balas picked against us. That's great. I'm so excited because that means we're going to win. And it's like, okay, everybody picked against them against Ohio State last year. A lot of people picked against them against Alabama. You have to go with your gut, and you have to be honest if you have credibility here.
Balas, do the people that watch this podcast and the people that read all your great content on the website, do they want us to be the Lou Holtz of Michigan football and never pick against them? I did that in the early years. Yeah. Desmond does that now on ESPN, and people laugh at him. I think we try to keep it real here.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes you're going to be right, and sometimes you're going to be wrong.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. But you don't go out west if you're Michigan and play very well in a true road game, apparently. And everybody says, well, what's that have to do with this year? It doesn't have to do anything with this year. If you have a veteran team, I will say this. If they had gone out there with the 2023 Michigan team, I would have expected them to win that game. Mm-hmm. When you go out there with a team that has not proven that it can do the basics against average competition at times or good competition, Oklahoma, for example, which got wiped, by the way, by Texas in a stunner, but then I'm not going to believe in you. And especially when you got a freshman quarterback. And I'm not ripping on Bryce Underwood here because Bryce Underwood's done a really good job this year as a true freshman quarterback. He's going to have some mistakes, had a couple in this game. But when you've got an offensive line that has some veterans there and guys that have played a lot of good football and play the way that they did on Saturday night, again, I hate to keep coming back to it, but to me, that's where it starts on offense. And when people ask me about Chip Lindsey and the offensive coordinator and things like that, I say it comes back to how the personnel groups are doing and being coached by the position coaches. To me, the offensive line still isn't there.
So overall, offensive line, a C minus. And the only reason I put him in that passing category, if you're going off of a high school grade point average, is because we did run the ball at times.
Yeah,
we were effective at times, but not nearly enough. So maybe it's a D plus. I don't know, Balas. It doesn't matter. So the things that stick out to me are, after this game, it was clear to me that Michigan has evolved into far more of a zone blocking run attack this year. And that's fine. That's cool. It's what we did my last 2 years at Michigan. And we were sort of a mix. And then going back to last year's line, the year before that with Sharon last year and Harbaugh before that with the championship team, they were a power, load the front side, ISO, gap down, wash it down, and just power football. And now with Lindsey and maybe with Sharon, we've evolved into zone blocking. Fine. Either one, it doesn't matter. You still have to get out of your stance, get your first 2 feet on the ground, get your eyeballs and your hands where they belong, with a body position that's lower than the guy in front of you. We don't do that consistently enough in the run department, okay? That's just technique issue number 1. Number 2, I don't think that we have the ability, it doesn't appear to me that we have the ability to make audibles with blocking assignments within the offensive line. It appears to me that we struggle, or maybe we don't even have the ability to change the play at the line of scrimmage when there's a bad look in front of us. I've got a little diagram we'll talk about here in a second that highlighted maybe the single most snap in the whole USC game the other night. I just thought this doesn't make any sense. And then number 3, in the pass blocking department, we still struggle middle of the season here. We still struggle with getting our hips and shoulders in the proper collective pass set to pass off simple defensive twists. We got one guy that's too high. We got guys turning their shoulders to the sideline. We got guys following block number 1, and we're not in position for the looper. The fundamentals that you work on in the spring and fall, we still are struggling with. So collectively, they're not getting it done. And that's frustrating for a former lineman like myself to watch, because they have the talent. They have the guys up front. They're tall enough. They're strong enough. They're athletic enough to do all these things. And yet we're not executing. So that game to me looked like the Oklahoma game 2.0. I think Lincoln Riley and his staff did a nice job of watching the Oklahoma film Their defensive game plan was load the box, attack, downhill, take away double teams, flood the zone blocking schemes, and see if Michigan can adjust. And we just really never adjusted.
Yeah, which is disappointing. And losing Justice Haynes obviously doesn't help. And as I've said on other shows and in my post game writing, he's a difference maker. And if you can get that home run, if he can go 25 yards, whereas Jordan Marshall's going to go 7, Skene, and you can get those chunk plays, then you are lowering the margin for error substantially. Because if you have to go 12 plays to score, you saw what happened, right? They get down there in 12 plays, then they take a sack and they're out of field goal range. So, but there are things that can and will go wrong if you aren't a well coached and a stacked offense that can move the ball. So,
and Balas, I think the first sack of the game, my game notes are downstairs where I left it from watching the game. The first sack of the game was on our young quarterback. They brought a blitz off the edge. There's no one accounted for. The assignment wise, the offensive line and backs picked up who they were supposed to pick up. That's where your young quarterback has to realize, here comes an unblocked defender. We have to have either a hot route off of that to throw to, or I have to get rid of the ball, or I got to do something. And he looked like a freshman, just tried to outrun it, and he got ran down from behind for a sack. And that's part of the growing pains of a young guy who still thinks he can outdo guys at this level that he used to outdo in college or high school. It doesn't work like that. So he's got to develop, or the rest of the guys in the field have to adjust to give him an option to get out of that scenario. And worst case scenario, the ball goes in the third row above the first down marker, and you start over on the next down.
Yep. I don't want to pick on anybody individually. We generally don't. When you get a guy like Giovanni El-Hadi back and you're feeling really good about it, your senior captain, fifth-year senior captain, and you're thinking, okay, then this line, which is showing signs of life here in a couple of weeks, you're going to be better. And they weren't. And in fact, there were times out there when I've watched him, and I'm smart enough, having hung with you, to know what to look for at times. And to me, there were times he was out of position. There were times he was playing too high, led with a false step, that he wasn't blocking the right guy even. And I was really disappointed with that, because I thought, okay, this is now you're getting back to full health. And this is a guy that you were leaning on and depending on. And the line took a step backward. Am I being too harsh?
No, I think you're being real here in your criticisms of the effectiveness and the execution up front. And you said too high. I would say at times, absolutely, El-Hadi's playing too high. And I keep saying that when we have our discussions, it's one of the great things about watching film of the Michigan football team. You look at the stripes on the helmet, the winged helmet, you can absolutely see with that maze that's on there in comparison to the defender. And way too often, the striped helmet on our offensive line, including El-Hadi, is higher than the guy wearing the USC helmet. That tells me you have no leverage, you're position blocking at best, and you're not moving anybody. So if you're zone blocking, and that's what you've got, which is a stalemate at the line of scrimmage, then you're immediately limiting the creases that the back is allowed to pick. So if it's zone left, the back is taught to take 3 hard steps to the left, and then he makes a choice. Keep it wide, cut to the mid, or cut way backside. If you're not getting any push, it changes all of his options for the negative. And El-Hadi was playing too high, not getting push. So was Evan Link at times. And then in the pass blocking, again, as a guard, when you're in pass pro and it's pocket pass pro and it's standard issue stuff, you've got to be in line with your left. If I'm the left guard, you've got to be in line in spatial correlation between your center and your left tackle, so that when things start twisting in front of you, you can pass them off and you can hip bump and just pass them off. If you're too high, in other words, too close to the line of scrimmage, and your left tackle has taken a pass set back, and your center's over here, and you're in no man's land, you can't help anybody. And that's not unusual for a younger lineman to make that mistake. It is unusual for a guy with a lot of experience to be caught that high. You're sticking on to maybe someone who's the first guy going in a stunt, and you're taking the bait, as we used to say. You got to be so patient in pass pro, and you ought to know that by the time you're a 4th or 5th year guy.
Yeah, if I were to go back to your 1992 team, for example, how many times a year do you think you guys got beat on like a guard tackle twist or something like that, and tackle twist?
Well, yeah. Balas, going into the Rose Bowl that year, the entire season we had given up 4 sacks.
Yeah.
The whole year. So we didn't.
Yeah.
We may have given up pressures, and those were the worst. I was telling a friend we were watching the game because we were talking about the very same question. He's like, "How often do you guys struggle with that?" I'm like, "We didn't. We had 4 sacks going into the bowl game that year." But what was bad, and we joked about in the last podcast, no one touches the quarterback. We felt horrible if anybody touched Elvis.
Yeah.
Let alone sacked him. So why were we so good? Why was the 97 line so doggone good? Those questions are answered if you're in the building and you know. The players always know who the players are. We did countless hours of walkthroughs. We did all the extra work. We talked about things in slow motion. We watched all the film. And I can only assume these guys are doing the same thing, but for some reason it's not translating to execution on the field with nearly enough consistency to allow our young quarterback to grow the way we want him to grow.
Yep. And I do have, if people ask me about the offensive coordinator, I do have one complaint. I didn't like the way they started the game with 3 passes. And it's easy. It's hindsight because they didn't work, right? If one of those goes for 7 yards, it's like your run play, your swing pass for 5 yards or something like that. But not putting the ball in your best playmaker's hands even once, going 3 and out after you've just given up a 75-yard touchdown drive on the first drive again is a real easy way to get behind the 8 ball in a game like that. So didn't care for that.
3 and outs with an offense that's humming along, and I know it's first possession, but they go right down the field. Your goal as an offense, no matter how many times you get the ball, but when you get it on your own 25 or 30 or whatever, you're coming out. Your goal is always 2 first downs minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum before you punt. That way, at least your midfield, you can flip the field and hope that your defense settles in on the second possession. And so, they script. Oftentimes, they'll script the first 2 possessions. The first 3 were maybe to back them off because clearly USC showed up with a heavy downhill, load the box, aggressive defensive front, looking a lot like Oklahoma. So maybe the answer was, but we didn't execute. So all of a sudden now to start the game off, now we're looking up the hill, looking like, and all of a sudden we got to run over a hurdle just to begin with. It's not a great start, and so we can question things. I'm not so hung up on the scripted part of the beginning of the game. That part doesn't bother me. What does bother me is other things that I saw. Here we go, Balas.
Yep.
You ready?
Yep.
All right. Critical moment in the game. You want to go back and watch it? Third quarter, they just go up 21-7. We got the ball 1st and 10 on our own 37-yard line. This is the look that we got on 1st and 10, okay? And we run zone left this way, all right? You go back and watch the film because it was a tackle for loss for 2 yards. We lost 2 yards in this play. We're asking this offensive tackle to reach out here. We're asking this guard to zone block here. We're asking the center to come all the way over and get this linebacker. The backside guard here, Guinera, he turns him around in like a cutoff block, and this is just kind of a mess in here. And we're asking Sprague to come over here and get this linebacker. You can see why this is just a bad idea. So what I don't understand, we come to the line of scrimmage. Are we set in this? Do we not have the ability to, at least at a very minimum, call opposite and come over here where we have a tight end and a wing back and we can maybe get something going this way? But we don't. We stay in this play and we run over to what is effectively a bad set of angles with you got 3 blockers here trying to get these 3 guys, which are set way over here, right? We have bad angles. And you're asking this tackle to get over here. So we give the ball, we run down the line over here, and it's a tackle for loss because we're upfield here. This guy basically goes unblocked because we got a shitty angle here, and here's your fill-in guy from the backside. This is a no chance, Balas. We had no chance on that.
Yeah.
So I look at this and I go, what are we doing?
Yeah.
At the very minimum, why doesn't someone go, timeout? This ain't going to work.
Yep.
Or something. And so I sit there and I think, okay, maybe we got a freshman quarterback. Maybe he doesn't have enough wherewithal yet. I don't know, to look over there and go, ooh, no, easy. Opposite. If you're running 29 zone left, opposite is 28, and everybody just runs it. You got to set the back on the other side, and you snap the ball and hope the defense hasn't adjusted. It's better than running into a brick wall where you know you're going to have a tackle for loss. So these are the kinds of things, and I say during the games when I text you and I go, we're just not very smart at times at the offensive front. We look at things and we go, hell's bells, we're going to run it anyway. And it just seems like in a game where you're struggling and it's 21-7, you can't afford to do those things.
Yep, and I do want to say, I do appreciate all the texts from you and Chris Stapleton during the game when I'm trying to work coming through, especially Stapleton, the former Michigan punter. I don't know if people knew about his mullet, but it's like, what the hell are they doing? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, my God, this guy should be on a message board, which he is, by the way. So anyway, but to your point, that is a question that I was going to ask today, and I didn't get a chance to, but we are going to ask, can they audible? The problem is, do we get a real answer? Right. Oh, yeah, we can do that, in front of a microphone. So we're going to ask people behind the scenes. All right. Do we have the ability to do this? Because, how many times, for example, did Elvis Gerback go up to the line with 4 plays or something?
All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
Right. So you see something you like. And when you are a veteran, especially, and of course, Bryce Underwood isn't that yet. I'm hoping in year 2 or year 3, he has that ability. And he sees something he doesn't like and he's going to check into something that works.
But Balas, even with a freshman, even with a young guy like Bryce, you can go up there, you call your play. In that case, let's say it's 29, whatever they call it, doesn't matter. Bryce should be able to look over there in a moment before the ball is snapped, especially in the gun. Well, you can see the whole front, to look over there and go, I don't like this. Opposite. And that's, you got to flip the back because you're doing a read zone style, attack here. That's fine. You still have time. It's not too much to ask even a freshman to look and at least have that option. Yeah, maybe he doesn't have a whole playbook or 4 or 6 plays or a run pass choice to give him to see and look at a front and make that decision. But my problem is it appears as if there's no choices.
Yeah.
That we just are stuck in it and we'll deal with 2nd and 13, which I think is just stupid football.
Yep. Well, there you have it. And I do want to give a shout out to Andrew Marsh, who is emerging as a really nice young freshman receiver. Good hands. Don't think he dropped the pass, which was fantastic. I don't think there were a whole lot of drop balls actually on Saturday night. But to have that option, to have Donovan McCulley, and still want to see more of the tight ends. And I'm kind of wondering, are teams taking that away? Are they not targeting the tight ends? And we asked Sharon more about that today, and he said, well, yeah, we did have a young receiver emerge. Yeah, we do have plays for the tight ends, but when you've got guys out there that can catch, like I think Marlon Klein is one, and definitely Hogan Hansen, I want to see a little bit more of that as well. So we'll see what happens here going forward. But really disappointing. I wanted to ask you about the defensive line too. It seemed like those guys were playing high. It seemed like everybody's talking about the blitzing right against the screen game. Mm-hmm. And the ball was out quickly. They didn't seem to adjust very well to that. They got destroyed, frankly, by the screen game. What did you see from the offensive lineman or the defensive lineman up front, rather, the front 7 as a whole? I still see some bad fits in the linebacking core. And when you've got veterans there too, and you've been talking about them all off season about how good they are, and you're seeing some of these boneheaded mistakes, that really makes me wonder.
Well, just the overall evaluation of the USC offensive line, pretty athletic group of guys. I think their right tackle, number 77, that kid moves really well, Balas. They ran the old block down, pulled the backside guard and tackle, probably it looks like a dozen times. And it was always to the left, which tells me 77 is one of their better pulling guys in their guard. That play worked really well. They were really efficient up front. So credit to a very effective athletic offensive line from USC. On the other side of the ball, the Michigan defensive line, weren't shedding those blocks. We weren't getting off to the blocks, and they're getting up to our second level. And you don't have to have devastating blocks on linebackers to have big runs. We saw that in the Nebraska game when Crippen was really, really effective. You just got to get on a linebacker for a second to let your speedy back get on by. And as long as there's nothing to grab but the tips of your fingers, that dude's into the secondary for God knows how many yards. And we saw that time and time again. So the fundamentals were just getting blocked, and maybe we weren't, mixing things up in the defensive front, slants and twists of our own on rundowns. I don't know. I just remember seeing just fundamental blocking where we are not as effective in getting off of things to get to where we need to be. And as far as the blitzes go, why can't we stop this? Why can't we stop this? Again, the USC offense and their quarterback looked like Oklahoma, where they were into their pass routes with options for that quarterback. The ball was snapped and gone in less than 2 seconds. We could have had Aiden Hutchinson back there on the edge, and it wouldn't have mattered because the ball was gone that fast, Balas, which tells you they were taking advantage of the way our defensive secondary was defending in short routes in space. When we did blitz, the quarterback either had the option to throw to the hot route, or there was a route that was already scripted where he knew the ball was going to be. And so the way you defend against, or the way you attack a blitz, is you always throw right at it.
Yep.
That's typically how you defend it. And the key is when you got your wide receiver, your slot, your tight end, or your wideout out there, whatever, 1, 2, or 3, they look in and they see a blitz come. They immediately break off the route and run to where the blitzer came from, and the ball goes right to that spot. They were very, very good at that, Balas. So They just burned us time and time again, and it just felt like we could never get home because they were too efficient in the throwing and the catching.
Yeah, it was disappointing, given especially USC, and we can compare. You look at what they did at Illinois, for example, and they moved the ball, but Illinois did a better job defending them than Michigan did, flat out. If you look at the offense, though, 13 points. That was the lowest by any opponent this year. Michigan State went out there and put up 31 points. Mm-hmm. You felt like they were going to have to match them here, right? And they certainly did not do that, not even close. That could have been a 45-7 game, if we're being honest, with the turnovers in the red zone. Nice hit, and you got to give Jair Hill credit for that. He forced that ball out of there. The second one was a terrible pass by the quarterback down to the 3-yard line. They get at least 10 more points there, and you're looking at a 41-7 game without the junk, the garbage. I wouldn't call it a garbage touchdown. Andrew Marsh made a nice play on it. That should never happen at that point in the game if you're a defense, but the game was over by that point. So it's disappointing.
I was going to say, we can compare what Michigan State did out there versus the way we performed. Well, let me ask you a question, and I'd like everybody watching this podcast to think of the same thing. If you play for the USC Trojans and you got Michigan and Michigan State coming to your stadium that year, which game do you think was highlighted as a red letter game versus just another game at the home schedule?
Lincoln Riley said as much. Lincoln Riley said as much. This is what we've been pointing to. This is the game we've been pointing to. And it's funny because I remember like last year it was Brett Bielema. This is not going to be a big deal. It's what we expected Illinois to beat a program like Michigan. Well, that was the lousiest Michigan team since the Brady Hoke era, for being honest, and 2020 doesn't count. That was guys weren't practicing. It was ridiculous. That's an asterisk here.
So you clearly understand my point.
I understand your point completely, and that's why I said you can't really compare it like that. At the same time, 13 points is 13 points.
It is. And
it's 7 of them coming at late in the game like that when the game is over. That's just not good enough, Doug.
No, it's nowhere near good enough. Yep. It's an offensive shit show, and we can agree and break it down all we want, but when people go, oh my gosh, Sparty went out there and did this, but we didn't. Every time you take the field in a Michigan uniform, you are going to get the absolute best out of your opponent because of the uniform you wear. And if you don't understand that, then you're missing something, because clearly USC was playing at an elevated level of emotion, speed, desire, want to, and so we got their best shot. They looked like a lot of teams look like when they line up against Michigan. Shit, they look like conference champions. Everybody's talking about them. Ooh, what could USC do now? Well, if they play like that every week, then they can make some noise here in the back half of the season. We'll see how they line up against other lesser opponents, but that's the challenge that coaches have. And if you're Michigan, you have to go out there understanding this, that not only is it the long trip and all that other BS we talk about, but you're walking into a hornet's nest every time you take the field out there, and anybody's stadium for that matter.
They play at Notre Dame this weekend, I think. USC does, coming off a Michigan game. It's going to be tough for them, back to back, really red letter.
It is, but I guarantee the Notre Dame game for them is a red letter game, just like the red letter game for us. We used to have back to back red letter games. Just is what it is. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. I think they're an 8.5-point underdog. So to the rest of the schedule, you've got Washington, which is tricky. That DeMond Williams kid. Look out. Look out.
Yards. Coming here. Now, 2 things. They're coming here. It's going to be basically a 9 a.m. game for them. Coming across the country. They have not played well under Jed Fish doing that. So, and neither have basically many West Coast teams, if we're being honest. But if you want to be a contender, then these are the games you have to win. They were down 20-0 at Maryland, came back and scored 24 points when they heated up. This is a game that Michigan has to win, a game that Michigan should win. And frankly, the next 5 games are games that Michigan has to win now, basically to get back on track and go into that Ohio State game to have any shot. And I will say this right now to you. Yep. Ohio State is better equipped to face Michigan than they have been probably in 4 years. The way they play, great complementary football. That is a really good football team, really well-coached football team, right up there with Indiana as the best. I can't believe I said that. Those are probably the 2 teams that are going to be in the championship game, in my opinion. And they're 2 extremely well-coached football teams. But it starts for Michigan with Washington. If they don't come to play, Doug, that's going to be a dogfight.
Well, Balas, if Michigan doesn't come to play, this is going to open up the conversation to a whole other map. So we'll see how we respond, how Sharon has his team ready to go on Saturday. Are we going to go out there with the most intense level to execute and perform for each other? Or are we looking at, maybe we just aren't that good and we're going to coast in here and maybe get our asses beat? You certainly hope that's not the case, and I don't expect it to be. But what we should see Saturday is the most spirited effort, desire, execution of the year. Everybody that's watching college football, all of us fans and former players, this has now come to this fork in the road for this season. If you lose this game Saturday, the balance of the year means nothing other than trying to spoil it for the Buckeyes again. And you go off and you get into some bowl game that no one cares about. It turns into glorified spring football in a bowl game because half the guys are going to opt out to go get ready for the NFL, and you're a forgotten team. And that's just the reality of things. So this Saturday against Washington, we better see the most intense effort of the year. Otherwise, I start to wonder about bigger things.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot. Does Michigan go 5-0 in these next 5 games going into Ohio State? That means beating Purdue, Northwestern at Wrigley Field. Northwestern looks like an improved team. At Maryland, at Michigan State, you better win that game. You lose 3/4 of your fan base if you lose at Michigan State this year.
Yeah, Balas, Michigan State's got bigger problems than we do. We're not going to lose that game. We lose that game, then look out. The games that worry me are this Saturday against Washington and are we at Maryland? Are we at home? Yeah, we're at those 2 right there concern me. You want to know, if we play to our potential, we'll beat all these teams. If we have any setback, if we don't execute out of our stance up front better and we don't get smarter against better fronts, we're not going to run the table up until the Ohio State game. That's not going to happen. So they better get better fast, starting this Saturday, and then of course you got a bye week built in there too. I have my reservations, Balas.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. He's Doug Skene, Michigan's 5-time Big Ten champion. Skene, I appreciate it. Did you take a picture? Those picture of your rings? That picture of your rings behind you, or who got that?
That's just a picture of all.
Are those actually your 5 rings, or somebody else's? Or?
No, those are mine. Those are mine, and we did that as seniors, and it's just because most of the guys have them in like safety deposit boxes or safes or somewhere secure.
You can find Doug Skene's at the Golden Pond Super Shop in Las Vegas on sale for like $3,000. So
I don't think they're worth much, but those are are the old school. Those are the Big Ten championship rings that I don't ever wear them, Balas, but it's right here.
Yeah,
the participation that I had on those teams and the lessons learned from a demo guy all the way up to a starter is what drives me today, Balas.
Would those rings still fit on your finger?
Well, no, because this finger's mangled. My knuckles all got mangled later in my playing career, so they don't fit. But
gotcha, understood. But that's okay. You can still get them at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. So
they're right here.
Exactly. Skene, I appreciate your time. We will do it again next week, and we'll talk to you then.
All right, go blue.